Hi, I'm Kim Jamieson-Hirst of Chatterbox Quilts, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make this improvisational swirling star. One of my favorite books on modern quilting using improvisational piecing is Quilting Modern by Jacquie Gering and Pedersen. But one of the things that she does in the book, that Jacquie does in the book, is she uses this stitch and flip method to make different quilts, different blocks and different quilts, like the Supernova quilt, for example. And I love using the stitch and flip technique, especially if I'm using scraps, because you can make lots of really interesting blocks using this technique. And one of the blocks, I should say actually one of the projects that Jacquie makes in her improvisational piecing modern design craftsy class is called the Swirling Stars. And this is a printout from that class. And she makes these swirling star units here, and I wanted to try and make one of those blocks today, and I wanted to change it up just a little bit. So let's talk about what it takes to make one of those blocks. So Jacquie likes to use rectangles for her background. A lot of times you might use squares. In this case, she's using rectangles. And for each block, you need 4 of these rectangles of your background fabric, and these rectangles are 5.5 inches by 9.5 inches. So we've got those ready to go. Now the stars are made out of 2 parts in that block with what we'll call long points and 2 with short points. So you need fabrics for those, and I've chosen blue for these particular ones. Now when you're making the long points, you need to have fabric that's at least 3 inches by 7 inches, and that's generous. So if you've got pieces like I do here, it's going to be more than sufficient. For the short points, you need to have pieces that are 2 inches by 5 inches. Like I have here. This is 2 inches by about 7, I think, and this is obviously wider than 2. So I've got lots of fabric here to make those short points. What I wanted to change in this block was the center part. So you can see in the little stars here that Jacquie has used the white or the background fabric in the center of the stars as well. I want to do something a little bit different. I wanted to use yellow in the center of the stars. And what you're going to need to do that is for each part of the blocks, I'm going to call these little background rectangles part of the block, okay? You're going to take a 2.5 inch square, you're going to cut it in half on the diagonal, and you're going to use one of those half triangles for each of those 4 background rectangles, okay? So you see I've got 4 of those, okay? So 2 2.5 inch squares will yield the 4 triangles that we need. All right, and what I think is a good idea is to use the same fabric for that center part, okay? I'm using different color fabrics. I'm sticking with all blues here, but they're all different blue fabrics for each of the points, but kind of to draw it all together, I'm using the same fabric in the center. Okay, so that's what we need to have for one of those swirling star blocks. How do you make them? Well, that's the thing we want to know about, right? Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take one of the background rectangles, and you're going to take one of your fabrics to make the long point. Okay, you're going to make 2 long point pieces and 2 short point pieces, okay, using the background rectangles and some of that blue fabric. So what you want to do for the long points, they are going to run up the right side of your background rectangle. All right, so I'm going to take my piece here, and I'm using some of these are batiks, so it makes it really easy. I don't have to worry about right or wrong sides, right? But you're going to put them right sides together typically, and I'm running it up the side here. Okay, I want to make sure I've got excess at the bottom and a little bit at the top, and you're going to stitch it out with a 1/4 inch seam, and then you're going to flip it. Okay, so I want to make sure that I've got enough fabric to, you know, whatever angle I put it on, that it's going to cover my background rectangle. All right, so we would do something like this. We'd stitch this on with a 1/4 inch seam. So that's step 1 to do that, okay? So again, taking the bigger piece of fabric, the 3 by 7 inch fabric, and using one of your background rectangles, running it up the right, kind of from the bottom and up the right side, okay? I'm gonna go to the machine, I'm gonna stitch it on, I'm gonna come back and show you what the next step is. Now that that strip is sewn on, we need to press it. And we need to flip it, right? So we're going to flip it up here, press it. And I like to run some Easy Press along here to keep it nice and flat. If you don't know what Easy Press solution is, check in the description below because I'll have a link to it for you. It's my favorite starch alternative to use to keep everything super, super flat when I'm stitching. Okay, so there we go. Well, that doesn't look quite right, does it? That's because we have to do some trimming. So I'm going to turn this over and we're going to trim off that excess. All right. So I'm just lining up my ruler along the edge of the background rectangle. We're going to trim that off. Into the scrap pile that goes. And then we have some on the bottom to trim off as well. Okay, so there we go. I also have this that I think I'm going to trim off a little bit if I can do this without cutting my background rectangle. There, that's better. Okay, so that's kind of part of it, but it's not quite all of it, is it? Because we need to use these little yellow rectangles. Remember I talked about, or triangles I should say. Remember I talked about that center that I want to look, have it all be yellow. So we're going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to take the little triangle, we're going to put it across whatever angle you want to do, you know, on the corner, okay, at the bottom, and we're going to stitch it and flip it over again. So I might do it up here. That would still work as well. So again, 1/4 inch seam, and I'll come back and show you what we do with this. So we've got our little yellow rectangle on there. Again, same thing. We're going to press that, set my seam, and then we are going to flip and press again. Okay, give it a shot of easy press here. Keep it down there. And we'll give it another good press there. And of course we're going to need to do some trimming, right? Because it's going to be extending past the boundaries of that background, right? Just like our blue fabric did. So again, we're going to line up along the background rectangle and trim. Couple of sides there, right? All right, so this is what we have here, okay? So we've got one long point. We need to make two, so we do the same thing to make the second one. Now something I wanted to talk about here is the fact that we now have 3 layers of fabric here, which I don't really want to have. A lot of people would keep the top layer and just trim off both of the bottom layers. I don't like to do that. I like to keep that bottom layer because that is my, I don't know what I call it. It's my, it's my support, I guess I would kind of call it. It's like a support sort of on the bottom. So I will trim off the blue fabric. The yellow's already trimmed. I will trim off the blue, and I've still got that base there, the bottom rectangle, that background rectangle there, kind of as a support. It is what is actually the right size, if you will. And if you'll notice here, it's very subtle. But if you notice here, I've got a little bit of background showing there. My yellow didn't quite cover it all. Now, I'm not worried because I'm going to be putting this into the block and it's going to be inside the 1/4 inch seam allowance. But it does tell me if I had trimmed off here, you know, if I just had the yellow and trimmed the background off here, well, that's not going to be very straight, right? It's not right. Okay, so I like to keep that background rectangle fabric still there, so I don't like to trim it off. But we didn't need the blue, so off it went. Okay, so I need to make another one of these, and I also need to make 2 of the short points. Okay, so if we're talking about the short points, let me grab some fabric for that. It's a little bit different because the long point we used on the right side. The short point, we're going to be making it across the left and kind of the bottom of the left here. So sort of like this. So again, I'm going to be lining this up however I want to do that. I'm going to be stitching, we're going to be flipping it, okay? So we do the same thing with this one. We would stitch it on, we would flip it, trim it, add our little yellow rectangle down here. Or I keep calling it rectangle, little triangle. Never was good at geometry. Okay, I would put it on here and I would stitch and flip. And when we do that, what we're going to get, because I've already made one, is this. Okay, so we're going to get this kind of a look. Okay, so you're going to have one that looks like this and one that looks like that. And you need to make 2 of each. Okay, so 2 long points, 2 short points. Okay, and when you've got them all made, you are going to have 4 pieces, right? We started with the 4 background rectangles. I almost called them triangles. Pieces. Okay. Let me move this out for now. Okay, so we're going to line them up like this, okay? Because they're going to go together to form one block, right? So you're going to have long point, short, long point, short. And they're going to come together like this. So all your colors are in the centermost area, and your background, you know, just the background fabric is on the outermost area. And so then what you would do is you would sew 2 of them together with a 1/4 inch seam, 2 of them together with a 1/4 inch seam, and then you would sew them together to make the star. So I'm going to go and do that now and come back and show you what the result is. So here's my wonky star. So I think it turned out quite well. And the one thing I would point out to you is that you get quite a bit of thickness through here because of all the different layers. So while I did press these to one side, as I usually do, depending on the kind of quilting you want to do, you may want to press those seams open, the seam here open, so it'll be just a little bit less bulky. So this is how I made the wonky star from Jacquie Gering's Improvisational Piecing Modern Design Craftsy class, and I really like how it turned out. Now there's something else I want to share with you about this particular project, another option. But before I do, I just wanted to remind you that if you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe to my Chatterbox Quilts YouTube channel. And make sure you hit the bell so you'll be notified the next time I release a new video. Now, while I made this with all blue, you'll notice that I've got all different colors of blue, because that makes it more interesting, especially since I had the same fabric in the center. That yellow fabric is all the same, which ties it all in. But you want to make sure that you have variances in the tones so that there's some that are a bit lighter, some that are darker, gives more interest as well. And I also think that you could make this particular block with all different fabrics, so make it really scrappy. And again, if you were doing that, so let's say you had blue here and orange and pink and purple, let's say, having all the same yellow fabric in the center would really draw that in and make it a cohesive block. This is one way to make an improvisational star, but I also have a video that shows you how to make a different type of wonky star. So check out this video for all the information that you'll need. And for more helpful quilting information, be sure to go to my website at www.chatterboxquilts.com.